Thank you so much for joining us for our online dialogue series, Power of One. Your dreams matter if you dare to live. And हमने इन सब लोगों को हमने सुना, देखा कि एक इंसान has the power to impact so many lives. They have shared their life experiences with us, their thoughts, their visions, and हर एक guest हमारे लिए बहुत unique रहा है and have created a lasting positive impression on all of us. हम बहुत सी journeys explore कर रहे हैं with such people with the aim to inspire and sensitize the youth and old of our country through their amazing life stories. मैंने तो बहुत कुछ सीखा है इन सब से and I'm sure all of you have learned from them as well. So आज टीचर्स डे है, एक बहुत स्पेशल डे है, इसलिए मैं शुरुआत करने से पहले सबको रिक्वेस्ट करूंगी कि प्लीज आप अपने कैमरास ऑन कर लीजिए ताकि हम एक दूसरे को देखें, टीचर्स डे को सेलिब्रेट करें. And we would like to acknowledge all the teachers and mentors for their contribution in our lives and for appreciating the role they play for our well-being and overall development. Teachers primarily nation builders होते हैं. So wishing all the teachers in the audience a very happy Teachers Day on behalf of the entire Oasis family. And we take this moment to celebrate and salute all the teachers who have worked and have been working to make a difference in the lives of the young generation. And what better occasion to talk about one such amazing educator who has chosen this path. And we are very honored to have with us Colonel Gopal Karunakaran. And हम बहुत excited हैं कि आज हम उनकी बातचीत के दौरान हम उनके जीवन के सफर के बारे में कुछ जानने के लिए हम बहुत ही उत्सुक हैं. So I would like to give a brief introduction for the benefit of all youngsters listening. Colonel Gopal Karunakaran served courageously in the Indian Army, and then he joined the education sector with the aim to create happy, productive, and contributing citizens of society. A soldier turned educator, Colonel Gopal Karunakaran has led a remarkable life filled with both passion and purpose. And अब हम शुरुआत करने से पहले I would request Colonel Gopal Karunakaran to please share a brief about your professional journey so far, from your army days till the role as an educator, for being a change maker in this field of education, and also a little bit about the Vidya Gyan School. And thank you so much for joining us. A hearty, warm welcome to you from all of us.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Tina, for having me on this conversation with the Oasis movement. I did attend one of the earlier dialogues that you had with the former education secretary. It was then that I started reading about it and understanding the sheer range of things that you do. It's heartwarming to understand, to know that you have sort of pan-India presence, your people who are working from in this sort of a movement around character building, as you say, for the young and for the old. It looks like such an interesting thing that you do. I know that primarily started in Gujarat, but now you've gone to many parts of India, and the fact that so many people are interested in what you're doing shows the need for this in our country and among the youth. So thank you so much, and compliments to all of you at Oasis for what you do. I must start by saying Happy Teachers Day सबके लिए, जो भी इस काम के साथ जुड़े हैं, वो टीचर्स हों या यूथ को डेवलप करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं और उस में लगे हैं, तो आप सब टीचर्स ही हैं. So Happy Teachers Day to you. So it's a lovely day to speak to you. I'm sure I should sort of start by giving a little introduction about myself and the organization that I'm currently with. I spent about 30 years in the Indian Army and I've spent 10 years in education. So let me give you about 5-7 minutes of a brief sort of an introduction. I'll make it visual so that थोड़ा आपको आपके मन में रहेगा. Visual things are always easier to remember. So I'm going to share my screen and I am a teacher by heart, so मैं conversation भी करूँगा और सवाल भी पूछता हूँ. फिजिकल अगर मेरे सामने होते तो मैं चॉकलेट भी डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करता हूँ जो सही जवाब देते हैं. अभी चॉकलेट नहीं दे सकता हूँ, तो टीना मैम और बाकियों को, हार्दी आपको बोलूंगा कि किसी ने सही बोला तो फिर चॉकलेट आपको पहुंचाना पड़ेगा. ठीक है. सो आई विल नाउ शेयर माय स्क्रीन. कैन यू सी माय स्क्रीन?
Yes.
Okay. So here we go. This is briefly my life story, and we will have maybe some conversations around it. But there are 4 things here that I have said. One of this is not true, and all 3 are true. So you have to guess what is not true. और ये सिर्फ ओएसिस वाले ही मतलब इसका जवाब दे सकते हैं. So I was born in London. I have a twin brother. I love food, and I'm left-handed. You can raise your hand, Hardi.
Yes. Would love to go. The wrong one is, I think.
2 ही chance मिलते हैं.
You are born in London?
Okay, so I was born in London, so that is part of my life story before 20. So you have only one more chance, Oasis.
सिद्धार्थ भाई ने भी born in London बोला है, और एक और कीर्तना भी जवाब दे रही हैं जो कि ओएसिस से ही है. Have a twin brother is also wrong according to them.
Oh, अच्छा, किसी ने chat में लिखा है.
Chat में लिख रहे हैं लोग, सब chat में.
I have a twin brother, and in some way I'm connected to the Oasis through my twin brother. So Tina ma'am and my twin brother have worked for many years together in the same company. So that's my twin brother. अब 2 ही रह गए और आप लोग कभी जीते नहीं हो. और मैं फौजी हूँ ना, so सब में जीतना वितना पड़ता है. तो I am also left-handed. So what is not true is I don't love food, right? So that
Neha Verma finally got it.
Okay. So, and I spent about 30 years in the Indian military in one of the most remarkable roles that you can ever do, which is the life of a soldier. I will share a little bit about that life with you. And as Tina did introduce me, this is what I've done for the last 10 years, be part of a wonderful school system. And you also asked me specifically about Vidyagyan, so I'll talk to you a little bit about Vidyagyan. But just my pre-employment or joining the Indian Army, part of my story is fundamentally that I'm a professor's son, who was fairly well known. He was also in Delhi University. He was head of department. He was the first director of the Delhi University South Campus. But he was also a much traveled professor. He used to travel to many different universities, and we were lucky as young people, young children, to be able to travel not only London, but Singapore, Shimla, Kerala, Delhi, Jaipur. So these are all part of my childhood journeys with my father. So that also maybe explains why I came back to the education sector, because that's where I grew up. मैं बोलता हूँ कि मैं यूनिवर्सिटी कैंपस में मेरी शुरुआत की जिंदगी वहाँ थी. उसके बाद में मैं कंटोनमेंट में गया आर्मी में, और उसके बाद में वापस यूनिवर्सिटी कैंपस में. So education and military life is what I've seen most of my life. And I will now talk to you a little bit about the Shiv Nadar Foundation, which is where I've been for the last 11 absolutely wonderful years of my life, working with children, working with teachers, and trying to make the world a better place, which is what you're trying to do, and this is what we also try to do. Okay, so the Shiv Nadar Foundation is about nation building through transformational learning. And that is what, again, interestingly, what I think Oasis is trying to do, that how do you create leaders, and through that, how do we transform? Fundamentally, it can only happen through education. Now, out of all the wonderful things, Mr. Nadar, who's the founder of HCL and one of India's big corporate giants, and this is not HCL Foundation. वो जो 2% CSR होता है, वो अलग से एक सब foundation है, HCL Foundation. But this is Mr. Nadar's own foundation with his own money, Shiv Nadar Foundation. He spent 7,000 crores of his own money in using it, deploying it in education to be able to change lives. Out of all these things, I'm most associated with Shiv Nadar schools, which is city schools. 3 Gurgaon, Noida, Faridabad, now Chennai. That's where the Shiv Nadar schools are going to be. SSN is a top engineering college in South India, it's in Chennai. And Shiv Nadar University is 10 years old, young university, among one of India's IOEs, Institute of Eminence, one of the top universities already in 10 years short life. There's engineering, there's management, there's natural science, and there is School of Humanities. But out of all, the most amazing story is Vidyagyan. And Vidyagyan resonates with what you people are doing, because through education, आप एक generation से पूरा family change कर सकते हो. सही education. आज 2 घंटे पहले विद्याज्ञान के 2 बच्चे मेरे साथ अभी हमने लंच किया घर पे, और उनसे मैं सुन रहा था उनके गांव की कहानी, और about women empowerment, about education, how much they have traveled before they came to Vidyagyan. But Vidyagyan has 200,000 students who appear for Vidyagyan entrance test in class 5. 200 boys and girls only on merit get free education in a residential campus from class 6 to class 12. Many of them, about 50 of them, come to the Shiv Nadar University. Again, they earn a scholarship. There's no they don't get it just because they're from Vidyagyan. But to see their lives and how that transformational journey has happened, about 20, 30 are in US universities now, about 100 plus must be in Delhi University. Many are in Bombay University, Bangalore University, couple in IIT. And I'm so proud to say, one of them has just recently, it's a young school, they've just graduated from the National Defense Academy and Indian Military Academy. और वो लेफ्टिनेंट है और वो स्टार पहन के घूमता है अभी गाँव में. सो ये है, और विद्याज्ञान के बच्चे अभी 5 नेशनल डिफेंस अकेडमी में, और ये सिर्फ एजुकेशन से हो सकता है. और एजुकेशन इज नथिंग विदाउट कैरेक्टर. So the fact that you're working in character building, which is true education, learning your mathematics and learning your physics is not complete education. And it's so important what you're doing to be able to fill that gap of education by working in character building. And we'll talk about that. So these are the trustees. This is Mr. Nadar, who's an iconic figure in India. And that's his wife, Mrs. Nadar, who also is not only the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art, which is a public display of free display of artwork. And art and music and sport, by the way, are part of character building. Because वो earthworms or crows or crocodiles को उनको appreciation नहीं होता है art music, वो human beings को ही होता है. और क्यों होता है? उसमें सबका character का एक story है. How do you appreciate art? How do you appreciate music? How do you appreciate theatre? So it's a very important element of character building is through these mediums. And this is Roshni Nadar, who's not only the chairman of HCL now, but also is the trustee in the Shiv Nadar Foundation. And Shikhar Malhotra is the trustee, and the school, the Shiv Nadar schools, he takes care of, along with the other businesses that they do. This is the beautiful Shiv Nadar University. I had to show you at least one photo because that's part of my office. And these are the wonderful Shiv Nadar schools. And I have been proud to be part of the Shiv Nadar schools. Not only that, I am employee 001. So I'm the first person who started. So I love that part of my job. And I will now stop sharing, and I will now take it forward as Tina ma'am would like to have this conversation. I will give you a brief introduction of me and what the foundation does.
Thank you so much, Colonel Gopal, for giving us a complete overview of the work that you're doing, and also intertwining the importance and of character building education, which very much resonates with what we are doing at Oasis. So अगर अपनी बातचीत शुरू करें और शुरुआत से शुरू करें, तो अगर हम आपसे ये पूछें कि हमें सबको मालूम है कि upbringing has a very deep impact on our life, और माँ बाप, टीचर्स, मेंटर्स का बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट रोल रहता है हमारे जीवन में. पेरेंट्स का तो हमेशा मेजर रोल रहता ही है हमारी सभी की लाइफ में. लेकिन मैं आपसे ये जानना चाहूंगी कि व्हाट वाज द बेस्ट एडवाइस यू गॉट फ्रॉम योर टीचर्स एंड मेंटर्स दैट शेप्ड यू द वे यू आर टुडे. आप जिस प्रकार के इंसान बने उसमें टीचर्स का क्या रोल रहा है आपके जीवन में?
So I think because I was part of a traveling professor's family, so we always had every 1 year or 2 year new schools to go to. And every teacher, as you said, makes a huge impact. And I remember from my earliest Mothers International days when I was in nursery, KG, grade 1, then St. Edward's in Simla, then in Singapore in a Chinese school, interestingly, which is where Tina ma'am and Govind, my brother, still is in Singapore. But so there's so many teachers who made an influence. And for example, the English teacher in Singapore, he taught us English through singing and singing old English songs. और जो भी उन्होंने इंग्लिश सॉन्ग्स तब सिखाए थे वो आज भी मैं गुनगुनाता हूँ. अभी मैं गाता हूँ. Isle of Capri. I mean, there are so many beautiful songs he taught us. But he used to say that by singing, your diction becomes better, inhibitions nahi hote, घबराहट nahi hoti hai. So you can learn through singing. And I think the most important things teachers teach you is not, as I said, mathematics and physics, but it is the role modeling that they do. And I think teachers, and it's apt that I'm saying this on Teachers' Day, but I often tell the teachers at Shiv School कि जो आपका अगर आप 7वीं 8वीं क्लास के बच्चों को पढ़ा रहे हो और आपका हेयर स्टाइल भी रोल मॉडल हो जाता है. You know, what you wear is also a role model. How you talk is always a role model. But I think it is in the attitude that the teacher carries. If the teacher is a happy, caring person, I think that's the biggest impact on the children. They notice care. I think children notice care the most. And I think my greatest teacher, in spite of all the people which went through my lives, which is all the teachers and other people, was interestingly my father. And my father's interesting part of when I say that, my professor father never ever visited any of our schools. He never knew which class we were in. And it's an honest story. He never knew हम 4th में हैं कि 5th में हैं. He used to know कि school जाते हैं. कभी school भी नहीं गए, कभी नहीं गए. But from him we learned some very important lessons. And that is why the teacher is important, because you learn from observation. I think the first lesson from my father was just to be lofty, to be big-hearted, to think big things. He never talked poorly of any human being. किसी की बुराई नहीं करते थे. So if you meet a father who never speaks poorly, or that becomes a huge influence, because you notice that that is not the normal dialogue. You don't speak poorly of other people. Then he was not judgmental at all. कि वो इस जात के हैं तो ऐसे होगा, या ये ड्राइवर है तो वो वैसे होगा. So he never judged people based on who they were supposed to be, and he was equal to most people. So it was again something that we always noticed. And he was also very humorous, in spite of being a professor. He's a very funny man. He was very absent-minded, so it was very easy to make jokes about him. वो नेबर के घर में फर्स्ट फ्लोर में चढ़ के ड्राइंग रूम में बैठ गए और वो लेडी बाहर से आई. उन्होंने पूछा इनका हमारा फर्नीचर किसने बदली किया. तो वो लेडी ने बोला प्रोफेसर करुणाकरन ये आपका घर नहीं है, आप गलत घर में आ गए और मैं आपकी बीबी नहीं हूँ, कहीं वो भी अगर गलती से आपने सोचा. सो ऐसे फादर थे. बट बिकॉज ऑफ हिज जनरल सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर आके वही बताते थे मैं तो गलती से वो नेबर के घर में गया, वहां जाके बैठ भी गया, मैंने बोला फर्नीचर किसने चेंज किया, वो खुद ही बताता. So he was an incredible role model to have and to laugh at. But I think his greatest quality was इंसानियत. I think character building में अगर आप इंसानियत सिखा सकते हो कि be good to other people. And in today's India, that's a major lesson which is necessary. Don't typecast people because they are from this caste or that community or that or this. That is the bane of India. So I think that is one of my greatest lessons. And I can go on and on about my teachers and my father, but I thought I'll just share some of these. But through all that, the mother always plays a big role. और अगर मदर नहीं होती तो हम लोग एग्जिस्ट नहीं करते बिकॉज फादर को कुछ पता नहीं था कि क्या हो रहा है. So mother always plays a role, and mother is always the joy that she had in her life. She has still around is again something which was driven from a very interesting thing. Again, very important that pursue your passion. So father was absent-minded, forgetful, careless, right? Hardly knew anything about home, but my mother still pursued theatre. Through all the challenges of her life, theatre was a deep passion. And through theatre, that's why I talked about character in theatre, because it changed her life. There was a reason and a purpose to what she was doing through theatre and through production and putting up a great show on stage, right? Unlike movies, one take नहीं कर सकते. एक ही बार जाना पड़ता है और सही होना पड़ता है. So I think these are some of the lessons from my early days that slowly sank into the young Gopal.
बहुत ही आपने तो हमारे आपके बचपन तक पहुंच गए जैसे कि आप कहानी बता रहे थे. तो बहुत ही खूबसूरत तरीके से आपने बताया, एंड द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ योर पेरेंट्स एंड द वैल्यूज दैट यू गॉट फ्रॉम देम. सो इसी के साथ अगर अभी आपने कहा कि जैसे ये जो वैल्यूज आपको पेरेंट्स से मिली, आज की अब हम बात करें टीचर्स का, जो एक्चुअल रोल है एजुकेटर्स और टीचर का, आपकी बातों से लग रहा है कि ओवर एंड अबव एकेडमिक्स जो कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग एजुकेशन का जो इम्पोर्टेंस है, जो महत्व है, वो बहुत टीचर्स की लाइफ में एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट रोल हो गया. तो आपको आपके इसके बारे में व्हाट डू यू फील कि एकेडमिक्स के साथ साथ कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग एजुकेशन का रोल टीचर्स कैसे आज की डेट में निभा सकते हैं, बिकॉज ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है बच्चों के लिए.
So इसमें मेरे ख्याल में, because I've been in education now for 11 years and being privileged to be part of an education institution from the very inception, तो मेरे हिसाब से दो चीज इसमें बहुत बहुत महत्व रखता है. Number one is the character and the qualities of the teacher, because the teacher is the role model. Even in the work that you do, how you select the people who are part of your movement and what sort of qualities they have and what sort of role models they'll be for other people is the most important part. So what is the quality that person has, because that is what will get translated to other people. और ये जैसे मैथ्स में आप टेस्ट करोगे, 10 सवाल करोगे, 10 सही हैं तो आपको 100 नंबर मिलेंगे. तो कैरेक्टर तो ऐसे मेजर करना बहुत मुश्किल होता है. So the only way is that if you have the right role models, without you noticing and knowing, you're copying them, you're following them, and then that happens slowly. I think that's one very, very important area. The other thing which Shiv Nadar schools are going to experiment from this year, and इसके बारे में हम चर्चा करेंगे ताकि अगले साल इसको करें. हम सोचते हैं कि 6th क्लास से 9th क्लास तक एकेडमिक्स मार्क्स को रिपोर्ट कार्ड में 70% ही weightage होगा. 30% you have to give for character, social skills, emotional skills, and you can put a metrics on it. Everything which you measure is not necessarily important, right? And everything which is important is not necessarily measured. But at the same time, you can put a system which says social skills will be checked. Right? And you say, these are the things about social skills. These are the things about emotional skills. And these are the things about character. And the teacher and the school can observe the person over a year, over the time, and guide the person and say, देखो, these things are not okay. तुम्हें गुस्सा आता है फालतू में, चीज थोड़ा cheating कर लेते हो उधर से. So those, when it all goes into report card, over a period of time, people say these are important things. It's not just put in the back burner. So I think these are some things I think even in our Indian education system, we have to bring in. What assessed, I always say what you assess shows the value that you put towards that. If you assess only marks, then that means कि हमारे देश में इसी का महत्व है. But अगर आप बोलते हो we will assess character, then you will say that is where the weightage will be. राइट. पुराने जमाने में हमारे ऋषि मुनि वगैरह कैरेक्टर करके बोलते थे ना, ये सर्टिफिकेट देते थे कि नहीं पता नहीं, बट वो बोलते थे कि नाउ यू आर पास्ड आउट, यू कैन ग्रेजुएट. So character was part of that education. And character has to be always part of that education. Has to be part of an assessment system. I think that is what will help. And you could consider how you'd like to bring it into the Oasis framework. And when you work with so many schools, we are more or less sure that we will put it into our system next year. We are working on it now.
ओएसिस में तो हमारा कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग एजुकेशन पे ही फोकस है. सो हमारे जितने भी प्रोग्राम्स वर्कशॉप्स डिजाइंड है वो कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग एजुकेशन पे को बहुत इम्पोर्टेंस देते हैं, क्योंकि वो फॉर्मल एजुकेशन जैसे कि आपने कहा उसमें वो आज की डेट में वो मिसिंग है. तो हमारी यही कोशिश थी कि टू इनकॉर्पोरेट दिस, एंड इट्स वेरी नाइस टू हियर कि आप अपने तरीके से भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं to bring
एक
that
चीज
into the mainstream.
आपसे बात करके और सुन के इनफैक्ट आपको ठीक लगेगा, तो वी वुड लव टू लर्न फ्रॉम यू, because we are still early journey, and maybe we will ask you how you're doing it and learn from you and put it into our system also.
Definitely, we would love to do that, and we can stay that this is the beginning of a beautiful journey, and we would love to work together with you to make that happen, because हमारा मकसद ही ये है कि जो ये importance है कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग एजुकेशन जितने से जितने ज्यादा बच्चों को पहुंचे और सस्टेन्ड वे में आगे चलता रहे, तो वो बहुत खूबसूरत रहेगा. एंड जैसे कि टीचर्स का भी आपने कहा, वो खुद दे हैव टू वॉक द टॉक. सो इट्स नॉट जस्ट अबाउट विज्ञान देते रहो, खुद भी उन आदतों को और उन वैल्यूज को अपने अंदर इम्बाइब करना पड़ता है, तभी आप रोल मॉडल बन पाते हैं. सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट लवली आंसर. पर अब अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं कि आपने आर्मी तो छोड़ दी, यू वर अबाउट टू बिकम यू वर अ ब्रिगेडियर. It was just around the corner for you. I read in one of the articles, and you left the army. So, आपको एजुकेशन सेक्टर में ज्वाइन करने के लिए ये यू टर्न आपने कैसे लिया? और आज बहुत टीचर्स हैं हमारे साथ जो सुन रही हैं आपको, उनके लिए भी बहुत क्यूरियोसिटी रहेगी कि आर्मी से लेके एजुकेशन सेक्टर का यू टर्न ये आपके जीवन में कैसे आया?
So I think some things which happen in life just happen. It's not that everything is deeply planned. मैं आजकल शिवनाडर स्कूल टीचर्स को एक वर्ड के बारे में बहुत बोलने लग गया हूँ, बोर हो रहे होंगे. Serendipity. Serendipity is about how good things happen to you by accident. You know, and if you do good things, it sort of happens to you by accident. There's no plan. But yes, one of the motivations was आर्मी में क्या होता है, बटालियन कमांडर और कमांडिंग ऑफिसर बनना सबसे बड़ा ओहदा मानते हैं. You can become brigadier general, but there's nothing bigger than being a commanding officer, commanding in borders and Siachen and things like that. So once that was done, I felt that maybe there's only one life, so I should try one more thing. And I spent 5 years in my army career teaching, both at Indian Military Academy as well as the infantry school. तो हमारे टीचिंग एस्टेब्लिशमेंट्स में आर्मी में रेगुलर टीचर वाला काम ही होता है. 8 बजे जाते हैं, 1:30 बजे तक क्लास होता है, लेसन प्लान होता है, यू नो. तो फर्क ये है कि यूनिफॉर्म पहनते हैं, बट अदरवाइज वी आर रेगुलर टीचर्स एंड वी ट्रांसफर व्हाटएवर वी हैव लर्नड टू द यंगर पीपल. So I realized that it was giving me immense satisfaction. So the other day I got a call from somebody and he said, "Sir, do you know where I am? I'm in Pakistan." I said, "अरे तुझे पाकिस्तान में पकड़ के ले गए, तू वहाँ कैसे पहुँच गया?" I said, "नहीं सर, मैं मिलिट्री अटैची हूँ पाकिस्तान में. I'm calling you from there." So he was one of my students. And of course, there are many students whose children are in Shivnada University now. But the joy of connecting with your students after so long, and the sort of stories they tell you about what you meant to us as a captain and a major, जो आपको पता नहीं है. I think that's the joy of the teacher's life. The joy of being able to influence younger people, and some people enjoy that. I think I enjoy that a great deal, and I think everybody who's an Oasis must be enjoying. It's a big area of satisfaction to be able to know that you are able to change somebody's lives in small ways and big ways. I think that's one reason why that happened. And as, of course, living in an academic family background, also helped to make the choice. And I was very, very, very lucky. Both I joined an organization called Career Launcher for 2.5 years with wonderful people, learned about schools and schooling, and then this wonderful opportunity with the Shiv Foundation, which happened 11 years ago. So there's a huge element of luck, but you have to make your luck happen also, I suppose. So that's how that happened.
Yes, yes. जैसा कि आपने बहुत सही कहा, बहुत ही डीपली सेटिस्फाइंग प्रोफेशन है। अब जीवन जब बदलते हैं, you make an impact into the children's life, and for the youth there's nothing better and more satisfying than that. तो आपने जो सीखा, like whatever you learned in the military life, how did you translate that into the academic world? And something like, what was that aspect, what was that something which you got which should be definitely included in the education system, because हर एक बच्चा तो आर्मी नहीं जा सकता, तो उसके बारे में।
तो एक्चुअली हम लोग आर्मी में बाकी जितने भी लोग हैं जो यूनिफॉर्म नहीं पहनते, हम उनको सिविलियन बोलते हैं, पता नहीं क्यों। मतलब एक फौज है और दूसरा सब सिविलियन। तो सिविलियंस के बारे में फौज और फौजी के बारे में सिविलियन सोचते हैं बहुत डिसिप्लिन है और बड़ा कड़क होगा, बट दैट इज द वन पार्ट ऑफ द आर्मी व्हिच मोस्ट पीपल नो अबाउट। मे बी सम ओल्ड हिंदी मूवीज में थोड़े कड़क कर्नल दिखाते थे, तो मे बी दैट इज द रीजन। बट I think there's a sort of a misunderstanding about what the army teaches you as a person, right? Of course, there are many things which you can take forward. And honestly, there are many things Indian society and organizations can learn from the military life and what means in the military. So in the military, I think there are, let me only talk about 2 or 3. There are many things I can talk about in this. One is that, you can go to Olympics and get a silver medal and be very happy, right? And say silver medal mila hai. But army life में, war में runner-up के लिए prize नहीं मिलता है। आपने लड़ाई बहुत अच्छी की, but second आ गए, मतलब हार गए। So there is no runners-up prize in war. So whatever we do has to be perfect. It has to be optimally the best you can do. And I think that is one of the lessons from the army, that whatever you do, you have to put your full effort and do as best as you can. And related to that is execution. मतलब भाषण बहुत दे सकते हो, अच्छे प्लान बना सकते हो, बहुत अच्छे presentation कर सकते हो, but till you do it and succeed, you have not succeeded. That is another very big lesson of the army, that you're never told that you have done well or succeeded till you have done the job. So execution is the key to any project. And those are, I think, the 2 major lessons from the army that, a good military officer will always take forward. That you have to do things perfectly. You have to do it as well as you can. There is no shortcut. There is no second prize. Right? Actually, हाँ, आप बहुत अच्छा कंपनी चला के second चला भी सकते हो, ऐसी बात नहीं है. Civilian life is different. You don't have to compete and be the best, but the perfection to do well, because perfection is not a goal; it's a continuous affair. So I think that's the one part. The third thing, which is very, very interesting for India, which I think most Faujis get very irritated by, is a very simple thing. It's called punctuality. Right? We take for granted, तो हम लोग फौज में बॉर्डर वगैरह रह के वापस जब दिल्ली आते हैं और कोई अगर शादी के लिए बुलाता है तो कार्ड में लिखा हुआ 8 बजे जाओ, तो वो क्लीनिंग वाला भी नहीं पहुंचा होता है, वो 10 बजे होता है, तो वो तो शादी है। मीटिंग में भी लोग 9 बजे की मीटिंग में 9:10 को आएंगे, कोई 9:07 को आएगा, क्लास में भी लेट होंगे। So that is a strict no-no in the army. And it's not just, it's a strict no-no in the army. In any good country of character, it's a strict no-no. Because when you're late, you're insulting other people. You're insulting their time. So the way to look at it is अगर कोई चीज 9 बजे शुरू होना है तो 8:45 बजे 10 मिनट पहले 15 मिनट पहले पहुंचने का प्लान करो. Because 9, like your event started exactly on time. You didn't say that let us wait 10 more minutes, some more people will join. It's not a good, it's bad character. Because so people actually after 9:10 nobody should join. Actually, जिसको नहीं आना है तो नहीं आओ time. That is better system. But in India we accept everybody coming late. But when you go to the airport, we are always on time because plane तो नहीं रुकेगा आपके लिए 10 मिनट पहले. कि मैं थोड़ा आ रहा हूँ, थोड़ा रोक लो गाड़ी को, प्लेन को जरा रोकना, वो नहीं होता है. सो वो इंडिया का कैरेक्टर है, वो ठीक करना है. आप लोग कैरेक्टर बिल्डिंग में हो, ये सबसे पहले ठीक करो. एक एडमिरल था यूएस नेवी का, उन्होंने एक बहुत अच्छा हार्वर्ड में at a full event he spoke and he said if you can't make your bed when you get up you will never do anything well in your life because फौज में सबसे पहले सिखाते हैं उठने के बाद बेड बनाओ. So these are all look like small things but they're very big things. और जापान में मेट्रो अगर 10 सेकंड लेट होता है वो ऑटोमेटिक अनाउंस करता है और अपॉलॉजी कहता है हम 10 सेकंड लेट हो गए. So I think maybe the third thing I'm talking about is punctuality. It looks like a small thing, but it's not a small thing. It shows character, discipline, a sense of respect for the other person. I think these are all some of the lessons from the army.
Yes, आपने बहुत बहुत राइट कहा क्योंकि पंक्चुअलिटी एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट कैरेक्टर है. और जैसे कि आपने थैंक यू सो मच फॉर अप्रिशिएटिंग कि हमने एकदम टाइम पे स्टार्ट किया क्योंकि हम भी इस चीज को बहुत ध्यान में रखते हैं फॉर ऑल आवर सेशंस एंड आवर वर्कशॉप्स एंड definitely give that as a very
Tina ma'am and the whole Oasis team, may I suggest that if you ever start a system which says that if you don't log in by 4 o'clock, you will not be given entry, I assure you, those who are interested will log in time. 2 ही बार करना है, तीसरे बार आपको पता लगेगा कि सब लोग आएंगे. वो हमारी भी गलती है, when we accept.
ये भी हम ट्राई डेफिनेटली करेंगे. आपका अच्छा सजेशन है.
मैंने एक यूनिवर्सिटी में I had closed the door after 10 minutes. After 10 minutes. But I got a very amusing response from somebody on email saying that this is neither the military nor a school. Now, it was amusing and I shared it with other senior leaders that it is not only the job of a school or a military to be on time. It is respect. It is lack of respect when if you can't come, don't go. So it's a very important lesson. And, in good countries, Germany and Singapore and all, nobody is ever late. Japan, right?
True.
We have become ढीला. So character के बड़े-बड़े चीज करने से पहले ये छोटा सा चीज करना शुरू करेंगे, बड़ा चीज होता रहेगा.
बिल्कुल सही. तो और भी जैसे अगर हम बात करें सोल्जर्स की जो ज्यादा चाहे ना पढ़े लिखे हो लेकिन इतने उनके वैल्यूज होते हैं जो कि लाइफ के लिए इतने इम्पोर्टेंट होते हैं. अभी भी हमने बात करी है. लेकिन आज के जो नौजवान हैं जो खूब पढ़ लिख लेते हैं लेकिन वो जो बेसिक ह्यूमन वैल्यूज होते हैं वही कई बार उनमें मिसिंग होते हैं. सो वेदर हम आर्मी में हो या फिर आउटसाइड द यूनिफॉर्म वर्ल्ड जैसे कि हम हैं बिना वर्दी वाले लोग जो मानते हैं, हमारे लिए सबके लिए आपके हिसाब से 3 ऐसी कौन सी बहुत ही जरूरी क्वालिटीज हैं जो कि हमें एक अच्छा इंसान बनाने के लिए जरूरी है हमारे जीवन में?
So let me think of a few, but I will tell you the one which I value the most from the army soldier's life. And this has always amazed me. And in some ways, it's also very connected to a teacher's life because I see teachers having the same sort of quality. A teacher or a soldier, you join the army or the school or wherever you go, obviously sometimes for some salary and some being able to look after your family with that. So that could be the purpose, initial reason. But nobody does a good job. Nobody stays in the military without having a higher purpose to his life. That higher purpose is the most amazing quality of a soldier. Nobody goes there saying कि महीने के आखिर में मुझे एक तनख्वाह मिल रही है इसलिए मैं काम करूं. Right? He goes there because he says, मुझे गर्व है मेरे वर्दी का, मेरे यूनिफॉर्म का, मेरे देश का. And I've never seen cowardice in the army, let me tell you. I've never seen anyone saying, मुझे डर लग रहा है, मुझे गोली लग सकता है. मैं वो shelling हो रही है, मैं नहीं जा सकता. I've never seen it. Because that is how the culture is built. Because our job is to do something beyond ourselves. So great purpose is achieved when you see a purpose beyond yourself. Is, I think, the greatest lesson from a soldier's life that we can ever get. And it comes through in many situations. If you have to go to a difficult area and there's something happening, we generally expect a soldier will say that I will go with my unit. So that's an amazing sort of a quality that you have. I think the second interesting quality is camaraderie and comradeship. We are always there for each other. So army units work because of izzat of their unit, of their company. So देश का जो movies में दिखाते हैं वो थोड़ा melodrama है. वो ये है कि अगर मैं जाट रेजिमेंट में हूँ, कुमाऊं रेजिमेंट में हूँ, मद्रास रेजिमेंट में, मेरी इज्जत मेरा बटालियन के साथ है. सो ओएसिस को मैं लेट डाउन नहीं करूंगा, शिव नाडर को मैं लेट डाउन नहीं करूंगा. So that feeling which has created in the military mind and the soldier's mind is one of the amazing things. If we can learn that this is my organization and I will do whatever it is required, is the second sort of quality that is an amazing quality. And as I said, the major thing is those two things I said, that in the army we are taught to excel because we can't afford to be second best. So perfection, doing something and rechecking it and rehearsal, it's just so much a part of. अगर कहीं कल जाना है देखने के लिए, वो एक पार्टी आज जाके देख के आएगी कि वो सब ठीक है कि नहीं. कोई चीज करना है तो 1 घंटा पहले सब सेट हो जाता है, ठीक है. टू द एक्सटेंट कि अगर कल एक बहुत बड़ा दावत हो रहा है, बड़े सीनियर लोग आ रहे हैं, जनरल साहब आ रहे हैं, तो वही मेन्यू एक दिन पहले बनेगा तो देखने के लिए कि खाना ठीक बना है कि नहीं. Has the cook got it right? So everything is, there's rehearsal and practice which happens. So I've given you a small example. So the way we conduct a small sports event will be better than ODI in Firozshah Kotla. So ODI, one day match in Firozshah Kotla, वहाँ 50 आदमी होते हैं वो prize distribution में. फौज में prize distribution होता है ऐसे, perfect, right? 5 people will go exact time and somebody will know where to stand. वो भी कल रात को practice किया होगा उसने. So I think these little areas of perfection is what the army, you admire the army for.
बिल्कुल. और जैसे कि जब आप बोल रहे थे तो चैट बॉक्स में बहुत लोग लिख रहे थे कि मतलब सैक्रिफाइस, टीम वर्क, डिसिप्लिन, ब्रेवरी, ये सब वर्ड्स भी सब लोग लिख रहे हैं चैट में आपके इम्पोर्टेंट क्वालिटीज को ऐड करते हुए. तो जब आप इसी बात को अगर हम आगे लेके जाएं कि जब आप एजुकेशन वर्ल्ड से में आए तो ये इन सब वर्ड्स को लेके आपने क्या नोटिस किया बाहर की दुनिया में जो कभी भी आर्मी वर्ल्ड में ये चैलेंज था ही नहीं.
I didn't hear you properly, fully. You're saying जब मैं सिविलियन वर्ल्ड में आया था.
हाँ, तो क्योंकि जब आप बात कर रहे थे ना तो चैट बॉक्स में भी सब लोग लिख रहे थे कि डिसिप्लिन बहुत जरूरी है, कि ब्रेवरी होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि हम क्वालिटीज की बात कर रहे थे अबाउट बीइंग अ गुड ह्यूमन बीइंग. तो ये सब जो क्वालिटीज होती है, ब्रेवरी, डिसिप्लिन, टीम वर्क, जब आप एजुकेशन वर्ल्ड में आए फ्रॉम द आर्मी वर्ल्ड, इन सब चीजों के बारे में आपने क्या डिफरेंस देखा इन द आउटसाइड वर्ल्ड जो कि कभी भी चैलेंज था ही नहीं आपके लिए आर्मी में?
I think one of the big lucky things which happened in my life is, as I told you, I was employee code 001. So I could start and say, यहाँ पे ऐसे चलता है. So I didn't have to go into a setup which was already used to something. I started the whole setup with Mr. Nadar's, Roshni Nadar's husband, Shikhar Malhotra. So both of us, we believed in the same things. So कानून वानून हम खुद ही बना सकते थे, बोलते थे कि ये ऐसे होता है. But you know, one of the lessons for you, for everybody, is that any person goes to a new place, any person, values, values of an institution is followed by other people. When new people come, they say only one thing they see in the first 10, 15 days. And they see यहाँ पे क्या चलता है और यहाँ पे क्या नहीं चलता है. और वो पहले 10-15 दिन में अगर साफ बताते हो यहाँ पे ये चलता है, वो सब लोग ठीक हो जाते हैं, इसमें प्रॉब्लम नहीं. इट इज इंडियन आर्मी के सोल्जर्स भी हमारे गांव से हैं, हमारे शहर से हैं. उनके पंक्चुअलिटी अगर आदत नहीं है, वहां जाके 1 सेकंड में कैसे, 1 दिन में कैसे ठीक होता है, बिकॉज वहां पता लगता है कि भाई ये नहीं करेगा तो 7 दिन का तुझे पनिशमेंट मिलेगा, या फिर अच्छा काम करेगा तो इनाम मिलेगा, व्हाटएवर. बट आई थिंक द लेसन इज दैट that is how you build a particular institutional culture, that this works here, this doesn't work here. So yes, as we said, execution, punctuality, these are all general problems that we have, or doing something not fully, not properly is a general standard of mediocrity that we have. And India has a big problem of mediocrity. Let's be honest. We, jitna marji hame desh prem hai, we have to accept that we have average standards. सड़क बनाते हैं तो सड़क perfectly नहीं बनाते, inspection is not properly done. There are many such things. So when we go to other countries, we realize छोटे-छोटे देश, how they can be perfect, and we accept those standards. Right. So I think it is about setting standards and say these are the standards which have to be followed.
And then top down, everybody follows the same. तो अपने आप ही वो culture फिर पूरे organization का और school का और institute का वैसे ही बन जाता है, क्योंकि सभी लोग वही follow कर रहे हैं. So there's no, without any exception. So अगर आपकी posting highest military post in the world में हुई थी सियाचिन ग्लेशियर पे, तो वहां पे तो you must have had so many amazing life-changing experiences being posted at such a tough posting. So we would love to hear a little bit about your life over there.
Army families, especially wives, they're very bored of their husbands, because there's a famous dialogue, I think Anil Kapoor and Rohini Hattangadi in a movie called Pukar.
Okay.
And Rohini Hattangadi, I think, is the general's wife. And she says, General Saab, आधा time तो border पे रहते हैं और बाकी आधा time border के बारे में बात करते हैं. So, you tell a soldier to talk about army stories, we can go on and on. But, I put a few photographs together, so I'd love to share with the audience some photographs of Siachen.
That would be amazing.
Let me see if I can just share
Take
that.
us back over there.
Okay, so here we go. I will show you this. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh. Okay, can you see? No, I've gone the wrong way. Right. This one I will do later. So this is the Siachen Glacier. Now the Siachen Glacier is a place which is the highest battlefield in the world. I had the privilege of not only serving in Siachen, wo baएं wala jo upar wala point hai, the right top point is called Bana Top. It is the highest military post in the world. It is 21,500. वहां पे हम 2 होल में डिग करके अंदर रहते हैं और टेम्परेचर है -50 degrees centigrade, -50. Wind is normally about 50 kilometers per hour. and we wear 7 layers of clothes, 7 socks, and now you will not believe it, 2
Wow.
shoes. 2
Two
shoes.
shoes.
2 shoes.
How
So
did
that
that
is the sort of life up there, and water is not available. So obviously kerosene oil, which does not freeze, is always the most important lifeline, because without kerosene oil, you can't run your stove. Without the stove, you can't melt the snow. Without melting snow, you don't get water. Water everyone needs. So that is the sort of life that soldiers live here. But as I said, nor have I seen cowardice, nor I have seen somebody saying, no, 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 I can't live here, I have to go back. So that is the sort of life that you have here. And this is how you go up, right? And I learned many lessons in the 7 months I spent in Siachen. Most important lessons, I think, were about myself. And I think in leadership development, the most important lessons you need to learn is about yourself. The first part of leadership development is ourselves. The first part of emotional intelligence is about developing it in ourselves. So I think the first part of any leadership development is about what does it tell you. And only when you put people in difficult situations, unexpected situations, unknown situations, you start knowing things about yourself. So there are many stories, but maybe I will tell you only one story, because as I told you, we will exceed all time. So we were going from a place called somewhere here, from what is called Kumar, which is battalion headquarters, 15,000, and walking upwards to another place at 17,000, where the enemy started shelling artillery, which is very big bombs, And when they come in the air, when the air is so clean and there's no other sound, you can hear, when it starts from the Pakistani side, you can hear it, and it comes करके आता है. तो आपको पता है कि भाई सर के ऊपर फटेगा. अगर सर के ऊपर फट गया, तो it in 300 meters it can kill anyone, because splinters are this big and that go into your body. And 20 of us walking, and this started shelling. The advantage in the snow is if it snows, even if it goes 20-30 meters, it goes into the snow and explodes. So it doesn't explode like normal muddy or stone, where it can go into many pieces. So everyone looked at me because I was the captain. I had to take a decision. The other thing is decision making. तो आप बाहर आगे भाग सकते हो, या पीछे भाग सकते हो, या वहीं बैठ सकते हो. तो वो डिसीजन लेना था. पीछे भागोगे तो यही सोचते हैं कि अरे वापस फिर से चढ़ना पड़ेगा. आगे भागते हो तो बॉडी आपकी इतना, it's uphill. So I can ask you one more chocolate question. What do you think I did? Because it's a moment of your life. There's crisis. You have to take a decision. It tells you who you are and your leadership and everything. Anyone in chat wants to try? Remember, the enemy can't see you. Huh? This is he's expecting that you are somewhere. It's coming over the mountains. Okay, so there are some answers in the chat, I think. आगे. अच्छा, आगे भी नहीं गए हम. You stayed there. वो भी नहीं किया हमने. पीछे भी नहीं भागे. तो क्या किया?
Find a shelter.
There is no shelter. You've seen what is the shelter? You can see. That's why I showed you this photo.
Or build a shelter. No.
So I quickly decided that this is destiny. There are some parts about your life which you have no control over. आगे भागोगे तो अगला शेल वहां गिर सकता है. पीछे भागोगे वहां गिर सकता है. खड़े रहोगे वहां गिर सकता है. तो मैंने सबसे पूछा कि देवानंद का वो पुराना जो मूवी है उसमें एक गाना था, वो किसको पता है? तो वो 3-4 लोगों ने बोला, हाँ, जिंदगी का साथ निभाता चला, वो है ना गाना. वो लोग वो गाते हैं और नॉर्मल स्पीड पे चलते हैं और गा के चलेंगे. सर पे गिर गया, और नहीं गिरा तो नहीं गिरा. So we continue to do that. Unfortunately, the shell did not fall, but we all remember that song. So there are some things in life through, that is one of the leadership lessons for me, that everything you cannot control. Corona you couldn't control. Online classes होंगे या नहीं होंगे, आपको कोई पूछेगा कि इंडिया में पूरा वर्ल्ड में होगा, everybody said impossible, not possible. But some things you can't control. So some of the things we have to accept and do work around it. And that was one of the lessons I learned from the Sachin experience. But there is another wonderful lesson, which I will try and share with you, which I think, Tina, we could, oh, it's not going back. Yes. No. Yeah. Now, this is a lesson where I always remember, especially in today's India. When we are in base camp, about to climb up, we know that अभी 7 महीने बाद ही वापस आएंगे. 7 महीने फाइक मेरे बटालियन का इज्जत वही है और अच्छा काम करना है. और 6 हफ्ते जब ट्रेनिंग करते हैं, when we do training, we are only seeing helicopters coming down from Siachen. Either there are dead bodies or injured soldiers or ill soldiers. So we always thinking, मैं ऊपर गया तो मैं भी ऐसे ही आऊंगा क्या? So when we go up, there is an igloo. What you see is an igloo. It is a snow, made out of snow. There's no bricks here. It is in Iceland and all these cold places, but in Siachen we can make igloos very easily. इस igloo के साथ ये हमारा religious place है. सब soldier इसके सामने से जाके माथा टेकते हैं. और एक ही चीज हर आदमी पूछता है. Let me do my duty properly. Let me bring respect and izzat to my battalion and bring me back safe. And इस igloo के अंदर सियाचिन बेस कैंप में एक बाइबल है, एक ग्रंथ साहब है, एक कुरान है और एक भगवत गीता है. चारों के चारों एक ही जगह में है, एक ही कमरे में, एक ही जगह पे. और सब सोल्जर ये नहीं देखता कि मैं इस फेथ का हूं, उस फेथ का हूं. फॉर मी दिस इज इंडिया. बिकॉज इंसानियत से बड़ा कोई धर्म नहीं है. And that's what you learn when you're a soldier and when you're in difficult conditions, that there are no religious differences. The only thing which matters is being a human being and being a good human being. Okay, Tina.
Okay, so बहुत ही इंस्पायरिंग आपने सबको बातें बताई हैं एंड सब लोग थोड़े से एकदम शांत होके रिफ्लेक्ट कर रहे हैं. बहुत इंट्रोस्पेक्शन हो रहा है सबके मन में. तो ये बहुत जरूरी है हम सबको इस बारे में सोचना. लेकिन अगर मैं आपसे एक और बात पूछूं कि आपने जैसे कि हमने बात करी थी आर्मी से आपने एजुकेशन की तरफ जब आपने अपना रोल बदला, सो डिड यू फेस एनी रेजिस्टेंस? एंड क्योंकि आपने तो अपनी दिल की सुनी, यू फॉलोड योर हार्ट, बट लेकिन आप ऑलरेडी एक पोजीशन पे आ गए थे. सो उस समय अगर रेजिस्टेंस था भी तो आपने एक तो उसको कैसे ओवरकम किया? और अगर हमारे जो यंग बच्चे यूथ जो है आज के जो हमें सुन रहे हैं और भी जो बहुत युवा हैं, उनको अगर लाइफ में ऐसी ब्रेव चॉइसेस लेनी हो, पाथ चेंज की और आगे बढ़ना है, सो व्हाट इनसाइट्स कैन यू शेयर विद देम regarding that?
So I think any change is always difficult. Any change that we do, and we are faced with those choices in our lives. And when we make choices, one is our own uncertainty, and the other is all the people who are around us who are telling us. In fact, all the people I meet in Shiv Nadar school, for example, who have done the Teach for India program, they've made some incredible career choices to leave a comfortable IT sector job after 5-7 years, or to be a sometimes chartered accountant, and to say that I'm going to give up because I'm going to teach. And then you teach in very difficult circumstances of a government school or a low-cost private school. And then you're able to say, but this is giving me joy, and you take 1/4 of the salary, hardly a salary. So I suppose there will always be resistance, but it is to ask yourself deeply what you want to do think the family is important because family is in some way connected to you and your decision. So I think getting the family on board is on board. Your decision is very important. But other than that, nobody else's views are too important. There are a lot of people who, there were two people who became chiefs after, after I left, but they were major generals. They said, Gopal, there is no question. We will never let you go. You're so, we value you so much. And one of them, Jal Vikram, actually, he took me to his office and he said, you will have a cup of tea with me and I want to know why you're doing this. He was a major and I was a captain together. So there were lots of resistance within the organization also. And I paid some money to leave the army because I'd done a particular training which cost the army. So it was fair that I had to repay to leave. But I had finished what is called the minimum service, which is 20 years. I had already done 27, 28. But it's also the adjustment that you have to make. The other people have to make adjustments. And you're also not sure whether you're going to succeed in whatever you try to do. And I'm sure lots of people in Oasis are facing those type of challenges with what they want to do. But like you say in your that wonderful catch line, that at the end of the day, the brain can't dictate everything. No? Your mind, your heart is going to tell you a lot more sometimes as to what you really want to do. And if that is the answer, then you have to be prepared for the hard work. I have slept on school floors when I left in many places because in that early organization, it was not a very well-off organization. I said, why waste money? And it's okay. So what if as a colonel in the army, you can sleep anywhere. So there are many such things that you probably have to do. But if your conviction is there and you're in the right people with the right character, as you say, I think you have to be prepared for a lot of physical hardships, maybe even mental hardships, but your heart will tell you whether you're doing the right thing.
Yes, heart always tells very beautiful things. So that's the tagline you were referring to. Heart
Yes.
Education is education of the heart.
Yes, yes, yes.
But in life, like you already mentioned to us, nothing is easy, right? Nothing is achieved easy. Right now, everybody can see your achievements, but there must have been so many difficult decisions that you have made, so many tough choices which shaped you, into who you are today. और उन choices और decisions को सोच के आपको अपने ऊपर बहुत गर्व महसूस होता होगा. You must be so proud of yourself right today when you look back and think of those choices and decisions you made. So maybe you can help share one or two with us so that it can inspire us as well.
I think the difficult situations, again, when you're in a young journey as a professional, I think you should value difficult times. And we should value the tough situations which happen. At that point of time, it looks horrible. It looks very difficult. But as they always say, it's always these tough situations which teach you a lot, and therefore you nearly always come out stronger. So while we don't like it when it happens, for example, when I was a major, I failed in an exam. And honestly, I've not failed very often in my life, but that exam failure would have not taken me to a particular very important course called the Staff College course, which happens in Wellington and Nilgiris. And if you don't do that course as a young officer, it's a big setback on your career. But there was, and it was the time I had two young children, and we were in, a place where there wasn't not that much of support. Your salary as a captain, the good old days wasn't so great in any case. So you're struggling on many fronts. And on top of that, you have a professional failure, which is going to put a setback on your career. I think I took it well. I didn't take it badly at all because I knew that I have one more chance. I have one more year to work hard and study. And, we used to study a lot in the army, by the way. People think, padhai nahi hoti hai, fauj mein. Padhai hoti hai. So I just knew the mistake I made was that I was not practicing enough. I was too cocky about success. And I thought I knew all this. I don't need to, do the hard work of writing and practicing what I was talking about. So I said, all this I know, and my brain is so sharp. But while I, did very well in 4 papers, in one particular paper which I was strongest at, I didn't do very well. And I just did a huge amount of practice and learned from that experience that you have to put rigor into what you do, and don't just depend on your brain. So I think those were lessons, and there were many lessons. But I think from a perspective of what you can use, maybe in Oasis, and what you do with character building, is that, and I'm a big believer in it, so that's why I'm sharing this with you. But get people to play competitive sport at every level, at the smallest level, whichever areas that you work with, make people play a sport where there is some rules and you're playing against each other. Because when you're 10, 12, and 13, sport teaches you some lessons of life on a regular basis, which you don't get otherwise. You don't need to have bad experiences only to learn. Sport, when you lose, is a bad experience, right? But you know that you played by the rules. You know the other person played by the rules. You know that the stronger person in that sport or the better person has beaten you, and you have to go back and get better. And you're internalizing that failure. I think the real thing we learn from failure is only if we reflect and put it back into a cycle. In the army, we call it a OODA loop, by the way. Observe, orient, take a decision, and act. So the reflection cycle during your training, when you do trainings, this reflection cycle of what went wrong and thinking about it, reflecting on it, and making a plan and how to do it better is a structured plan. I think sports teaches us that in a very big way. So at any level, it's a great area of learning to play, sport at some competitive level. And I have learned that because I'm obsessive about sport. So I think sport is the constant teacher for me, again, about myself. Because in any other thing, it's difficult to accept defeat, but in sport, you can't not accept defeat because finite hai, score hai, rule hai, and you win or you lose, and then you start reflecting on it. So it's important to do.
So character building through sports is definitely very, very important. And खेलते खेलते हम बहुत कुछ सीख जाते हैं. So एक और चीज, जैसे idea of those who are only academic achievers are successful in life, this is a very tough concept कि माँ बाप को ये कैसे सिखाया जाए कि भाई हर एक बच्चे को has something to offer to the society and in whatever way and whatever form they choose, right? Because जैसे कि आपने कहा sports important है, और भी बहुत अदर ऑप्शंस होते हैं बच्चों के लिए. तो ये एकेडमिक अचीवमेंट ही हमें सक्सेसफुल बनाता है. इसका ये माँ बाप को समझाने का आपने क्या एक्सपीरियंस रहा है इन योर?
No, I think I did share that with you. I think again, जो भी program करते हैं हम, and I think now people are realizing that also much more than before. Some of the obvious ones are obviously things like communication skills, technology skills, now, of course, social skills. If you even talk about something like adversity skills, and I'm sure after social skills, emotional skills, people are going to talk about adversity skills. How do you deal with a difficult, adverse situation? Because that is the nature of our life. COVID is one example, of course, but there will be business failures. There are personal failures. There could be issues in the family, which are sort of failures. I think the ability to cope with all that is so much an essential part of education. And as I said earlier, unless we put it into an assessment system at a very young age and let people understand, just like chemistry, emotional skills are important. Physical and health skills. And actually at the Shiv Nadar School, we are so excited about trying to bring this into a regular report card. Report card must have these things. It should be part of an integrated report card. And that is the only way. I think even parents will say, "Acha, report card mein iska 30% weightage hai," then they will start saying, yes, it is an important thing, because what we are also seeing now in university admissions, including a big university like Delhi University, which is India's probably among the largest public universities, they are changing the way they're going to take admissions. And it will not be all academic. So at the Shiv University, it's also just academic is one part of it. We look at so many other aspects when we admit students. So I think that is the way that the parental mindset will also change. You know, when you go to a foreign university, they expect you to do so many things. They ask you, what have you done for society in the last 2 years? What projects have you done? What social work have you done? So that's an integral part of saying we are getting a well-rounded student in college. And I think when colleges start doing that, and colleges, Indian private colleges are started doing that, they're asking these questions to students who are 17, 18 years old. I think that's how we change the mindset, by saying, see, college admission is changing. And then that's an easier way. But I think many of us have to change in college admissions and in report cards, in assessments. Those are all actually the easier way to change mindsets of parents, right? Rather than trying to explain to them that all these skills are important. But same thing happens when people join companies, and companies do placements. They don't look at your school marks. They look at what happens in the interview, what happens in their selection process. Are you clear thinking? What sort of emotional skills do you exhibit? You know, what type of social skills you exhibit? All these are thought of things that they check in the interview. So I think there is a livelihood angle to it also for parents to be convinced about.
Correct. Very true.
Yeah.
So
And education institutions that you work with, maybe it's a slow way to keep telling them that these are all life skills, and you need to spend time in that during your selection and taking the right students. Social work, for example, the sort of area that you work in. All these are, I think, very important.
yeah, very, very true. And then if we talk about like, let's say leadership education, which everybody uses very extensively these days, you know, what are the most important leadership traits uh, and your perspective on leadership education for youngsters?
So I have, as I said, I like to learn from Oasis about what all you do and how you put this together. Uh, my experience in the assessment side of leadership was when I was in the Indian Military Academy. And interestingly, out of 2,000 marks, every cadet is assessed for 500 marks on what we call officer-like qualities. Right? It is not maths, it is not military science, it is not technology. It's a very separate area about what sort of officer-like qualities do you exhibit, which is basically character qualities, leadership qualities. And those are the sort of qualities which we look at. I think, again, I'd like to know how Oasis works on these areas, but I would say the most important quality is moral courage. It's not just physical courage, it's about being able to take a stand and to show backbone. Reed ki haddi nahi hai to wo desh chalega nahi. I think we as a nation have to clearly look at those things, right? No one man can be right all the time for everything. Everybody should not be looking at one person. When somebody is making a mistake, however important that man is, people have to say, listen, this is not okay. And whether you're a bureaucrat, whether you're a politician, whether you're a civil servant in important positions, whether you're a corporate leader, whether you're somebody working in social sector, the ability to stand up and say, this is not right, and stand up to that is moral courage. And I think moral courage is the greatest sort of position you can take in leadership and character building. And there's always this amazing story about Field Marshal Manekshaw, If some of you have not heard it, you should go on YouTube and take these wonderful, wonderful videos about this general who was the chief in the 71 war and who told Mrs. Gandhi that March is not the month to go to war. And there was a cabinet meeting when the cabinet decided that it will be March, and Field Marshal Manekshaw said no. And he told the whole cabinet and Mrs. Gandhi. And Mrs. Gandhi said, Sam, please stay back. When the chief is told to stay back in a meeting after by the prime minister, it means there's something serious. So Sam, in his beautiful, inevitable way, said, and he was a very funny man, Parsi, with a great sense of humor. And he said, okay, if this lady is going to say no to me and throw me out, I'll go to my other lady, other woman in my life, which is my wife. So he was ready to resign if the prime minister had not agreed that March is not the right month. And he explained that बारिश होती है अभी 2-3 महीने में, बांग्लादेश में floods होंगे, बंगाल में floods होंगे, tanks move नहीं हो सकता. You are not ready for war. And we'll have a disaster. Now that is moral courage of the highest order. Now, if our young are not taught moral courage to be able to stand up to, I was talking to these Vidyagan children. I told you during lunch, and they're just wonderful. I asked them, how is Nari Shakti in your villages? Because, they've had amazing education, English, new things, and parda hai ki nahi, se parda hai. Caste system hai ki nahi. So this young lady told me, but when I go to those houses and sit with them and eat with them. And my village is shocked. This is not done. But she says, I know that it is not right to have a differential in caste. So that she's exhibiting incredible moral courage because she's learned that this is wrong. So I think that's the greatest sort of character quality that we can really teach the youth. And I leave it at that because while there are other things, I think the ability to teach moral courage should be part of our program, right? And to ethically debate the right and wrong of things, to look at what is right, what is wrong, discuss it and debate it, and accept differing views and different perspectives, because that's what will make us a great country. I mean, as a nation, which nation has the diversity of India? No nation in the world has that diversity, whether it's religious, socio-economic, racial diversity. If we are not accepting of diversity and we want everything to be the same and one, I think the fundamental element of leadership is moral courage.
Moral courage, yes. Thank you so much. Moral courage is, and having the bravery to stand up and make the changes and be the change maker is very, very important. So
yeah, I think it's true for our judiciary. It's true for so many people in all walks of life.
True, very true. So अगर मैं आपसे अब हम क्योंकि हमारा समय भी बीत रहा है तो एक सवाल पूछूं कि हाँ, life is all about continuously learning. So what would you feel are the 3 best ways in which we can continuously keep learning and growing as individuals?
Yeah, this is obviously one of my favorite sort of areas, and I think there are not as good people also here, but I think you are already doing the second of them by the series that you're doing. Ultimately, in my view, in my book, there are only 3 ways to learn. First is to travel and travel and travel, and travel is not enough to just travel and keep looking at your phone, because then you're not learning anything. You have to be looking out of the window and reflecting and saying, ye kyun aise ho raha hai? Ye kyun change ho raha hai? Why are these people different? So it's about traveling is the greatest teacher. The more you travel and the more you see and more you reflect, and why is it different from me and why is it so unusual and so cute and so different, I think that's the greatest teacher. And it teaches you, and the advantage I've had, as I said, in my childhood of constant travel, is I know that is the essence of humanity, the diversity, and accepting of different positions, because that is where we come from. Vasudeva Kutumbakam is not some nice dialogue which we just throw everywhere. But if the whole world is one family, then we have to accept different cultures and different viewpoints. I think travel teaches you that. You don't need any education. You travel, you see, and then you say, okay, they're different, but there are good people and bad people everywhere. And you have to sort out that rather than see other things. So I think travel is the greatest teacher. The second, obviously, is meeting interesting people. And I think meeting interesting people has become very easy if you do this weekly, meeting different types of people. But TED Talks make it amazing. I mean, technology has made it amazing for us to listen to some of the greatest brains and minds and hearts in the world by being able to absorb it and listen. So I think the greatest teacher then is clearly meeting interesting people and listening to them and having a dialogue with them. But because you can't travel all the time and you cannot meet interesting people all the time, you must always have a book by your side. I think reading and having a habit of reading for everything else we do, we will not constantly improve ourselves if we don't read, because reading gives you ideas, questions you, and puts new thoughts into your head. And from that, you say, what's the context for me? If I read this, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for Oasis? What does it mean for Shiv Nadar School? What does it mean for Shiv Nadar University? So you keep using that through all the things that you read. I think so. It's always travel, meet interesting people, and read, which are the constants of learning and learning all the time.
Wow. So yes, travel, read, and meet people, and continuously keep learning. So, Colonel Gopal, we have so many youngsters in the audience and so many educators, teachers. So I think they're all very curiously and eagerly waiting to ask you some questions. So I'm going to now open the session to the audience. And
anyone who asks a question, I have a request, the video will have to be on.
On, yes.
Unless yes, the internet doesn't allow.
No, so that's the prerequisite. Video has to be switched on, and we can, one by one raise our hands, and then we will unmute you from here. But please requesting you to switch on your videos first before we can unmute you and allow you to speak.
So while we talked about books, everyone Shiv Nadar is used to the fact that I will throw books at people, throw in the sense as make suggestions. But there's a lovely book called The Last Lecture. Maybe it'll be of value to many people. There's a brilliant professor of Carnegie Mellon called Randy Pausch. And he wrote this book called The Last Lecture. And he actually gave a last lecture when he was diagnosed with cancer. He was terminally ill and he was going to die. He knew that, but he still went ahead and gave this lecture. And that lecture he also converted in this amazing book. He's an amazing man, and he did die in 2010 of cancer. But the book survives him, and the book is his lessons of life for his children, and it has come through this book. It is a beautiful, beautiful book. And I believe there are Hindi translations also of it, and it's a worldwide sort of a bestseller. So, Last Lecture by Randy Pausch, strongly recommend.
So yes, that is a beautiful book. So please go, everybody, you must read book for sure. So we have Oasis fellows who have quickly raised their hands because they want to ask you some questions. Like we told you, we have that fellowship program. So I think some of the fellows are sitting together. So can you all please switch on your video and go ahead and ask your question? Yes.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Yes, we are audible.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Wonderful. You're audible, yes, and we can see 4 of you, so it's lovely to see you.
There are many.
And which wonderful part of India are you from?
Sorry?
Which part of India are you in right now?
Yes, we are from Vadodara and Vadodara, Gujarat, and we all are Oasis fellows and part of a program where we are learning to be independent by all the means in 2 years. So we are in a fellowship in Oasis, and one of our friend want to ask a question to you, so she can.
So, good evening.
Good evening.
आप आर्मी मैन हो तो मुझे आपसे एक सवाल पूछना था। ये सवाल मुझे बहुत पहले से है कि जहाँ तक मैंने देखा है आर्मी की बॉर्डर पे सिर्फ लड़के ही लड़ने जाते हैं, तो क्यों कोई लड़की आर्मी की बॉर्डर पे लड़ने नहीं जाती?
अच्छा, आर्मी में बहुत सारे लड़कियां हैं आजकल, लेडी ऑफिसर्स हैं, और मेरे ऑफिस शिवनाडर यूनिवर्सिटी में एक लेडी ऑफिसर हैं रिटायर्ड जो हैं हमारे साथ। और अगर आप लोग सब लड़कियां हैं, मैं कुछ बोलूं तो आपको बिल्कुल अच्छा नहीं लगेगा, आपको लगेगा मैं एंटी फेमिनिस्ट हूँ वगैरह वगैरह। लेकिन जहां ब्रेन्स और इंटेलिजेंस का सवाल है, वहां जहां जहां आर्मी के ऑफिसर्स हैं, मेल हैं, वहां पे फीमेल्स भी हैं, ठीक है। और मेल बॉडी और फीमेल बॉडी अलग है, ठीक है। और अगर सियाचिन ग्लेशियर में चढ़ना है, और मैं अगर ये बोलूंगा, आप बोलेंगे क्यों, हम भी अगर कर सकते हैं तो क्यों नहीं कर सकते, है ना। लेकिन आपको एक ही चीज बताता हूँ, एक ही, और फिर बात ही नहीं करूंगा, आप समझिए इसको। जब ओलंपिक्स में 100 मीटर होता है, 400 मीटर होता है, हेवीवेट बॉक्सिंग होता है, जैवलिन थ्रो होता है, तो मेन और वुमेन इकट्ठे पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं? नहीं करते ना। क्यों नहीं करते हैं? और मेन का वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड क्या है और वुमेन का वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड क्या है? मैं अभी दोनों बता दूंगा, आप बताओ कितना है वर्ल्ड रिकॉर्ड 100 मीटर्स में, क्या है बताओ। ओके, 9.5 सेकेंड्स के पास। हाँ, वुमेन का है तकरीबन 10.4 सेकेंड, वो भी बहुत अच्छा टाइम है, 10.4। एशली गेट हर सरनेम। बट 1 सेकेंड का फर्क है। 1 सेकेंड का मतलब है 10 मीटर का फर्क है। मैंने अभी आपको बताया कि रनर्स अप नहीं होता है वॉर में, तो आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि अभी हमारी बाकी जो टोली है वो थोड़ा 100 मीटर पीछे है, फिर फाइटिंग करेंगे, है ना, क्योंकि कुछ और भी लोग हैं, वो नहीं कर सकते। तो हमें एक्सेप्ट करना है कि बॉडी अलग है। आजकल के जमाने में ये सब कुछ इक्वालिटी, सब कुछ इक्वालिटी बोलते हैं, तो मुझे, आप लोगों को लगता होगा कि ये ओल्ड मैन कुछ अलग ही बोल रहा है। आजकल सब इक्वल है, सब कुछ इक्वल है जहाँ दिमाग का सवाल है। सब कुछ इक्वल है जब इक्वल काम करते हैं, ठीक है। और लड़ाई हमारे माउंटेन्स में करना इक्वल नहीं है, क्योंकि 100 मीटर्स इक्वल नहीं भागते हैं, ठीक है।
Any other question you want to ask?
Anyone else from this lovely team that you have?
और किसी को कोई सवाल है ग्रुप में से?
और मेरी डॉटर आपके जैसे जब आपकी उम्र में थी, उसने भी बोला कि जब फाइटिंग आर्म में लड़कियों को लेंगे तभी मैं आर्मी में जाऊंगी, मैं बाकी ये सपोर्टिंग आर्म में नहीं जाऊंगी। तो वो ऑस्ट्रेलिया चली गई।
Yes. Thank you so much. हमारे इतने क्वेश्चन से बाकी बहुत सारे लोगों के क्वेश्चन। Yes, और एक क्वेश्चन है?
मुझे और एक क्वेश्चन था कि जहाँ तक मैंने भारत के युवाओं को देखा है और मैंने फील किया है कि जब हम कुछ करने जाते हैं देश के लिए और कभी कोई फेलियर आता है, कितने सारे बैरियर्स आते हैं, तो जब फेलियर आता है ना, तब वो पीछे हट जाते हैं और वो सोचने लगते हैं कि शायद मैं ये नहीं कर पाऊंगा या फिर ये लोग मुझे समझेंगे नहीं। तो उस टाइम पे आपका ऐसा कोई एग्जांपल देके हमें समझा सकते हैं कि अगर इस तरह के कोई फेलियर आए तो हमें कैसे इसको बेयर करना चाहिए, और आपके पास ऐसी कोई फेलियर आई हो और आपने उसको बेयर किया हो, ऐसा कोई एग्जांपल आप हमको देंगे तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा।
जैसे मैंने अभी बताया था, फेलियर को रोज, what is the Hindi word for it? Parakna, is it? To tolerate and accept failure and swallow failure. रोज या हर दूसरे दिन करना है, तो उसके लिए ओएसिस फेलोज जो आप लोग हो, रोज कॉम्पिटिटिव स्पोर्ट्स खेलो, चाहे वो फुटबॉल हो, वॉलीबॉल हो, बैडमिंटन हो। तो उसमें क्या होता है, रोज आपको सिखलाई होती है कि हार से कैसे सीखते हैं, क्योंकि हार से सीखने के लिए एक ही तरीका है, टू बी बेटर एंड टू यूज योर ब्रेन्स टू थिंक कि और क्या कर सकते हैं, रिफ्लेक्ट करके बता, बिकॉज वो एक्सेप्ट करना है। और हार लाइफ का इटर्नल हिस्सा है। कोई आदमी नहीं है, कोई लेडी नहीं है जिसने कभी हार उनकी जिंदगी में नहीं हुआ। अडल्ट्स, हम जब अडल्ट्स होते हैं, आप लोग कितनी उम्र के हैं जनरली?
16, 17,
17,
16, 17, 18.
16, 17, 18. Wonderful. So I am 62 and I will tell you that adults are worried only about 4 things. You know what those 4 are? The only 4 things that when you become adults that you will be ever worrying about. 4 ही चीजें हैं। क्या क्या है?
Money,
Money,
family,
family, very good.
Job.
Perfect. What's your name?
My name is Purva.
Purva. You know, I've asked this maybe 1,000 times to many people. They always get the first 3. They never get the most important, which is the 4th. Which is the 4th? It's always money, relationships and family, and job. 3 things everyone quickly gets it. 4th is the most important that we worry about in adult life. वो क्या है?
Society.
No, health. अभी आपने मेरे से ये सवाल पूछा, मैंने जवाब दिया। अभी रिवर्स करिए। मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट इज हेल्थ, योर ओन हेल्थ। अगर अच्छा हेल्थ नहीं है तो पैसे का कोई मतलब नहीं है। अगर अच्छा हेल्थ नहीं है, करियर का कोई मतलब है। अच्छा हेल्थ नहीं है, रिलेशनशिप्स और बच्चों, मदर फादर कोई फर्क नहीं। सो हेल्थ इज योर मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट। बट एवरी लाइफ, sometimes you're failure in health, something has happened. Sometimes you're failure in career, sometimes you're failure with money, sometimes you're failure with relationships. So failure is part of life. There's nothing to feel terrible about. We have to get used to coping with it and saying failures will happen. Be happy when good things happen, and we cope with failure. So when you cope with failure, you must have, most importantly, what you're all doing, which is character, which is how to improve your emotional skills, your emotion. दूसरों को emotional skill नहीं करना, अपना ठीक करना, ठीक है? और उसके लिए मुश्किल हालात से गुजरना अच्छी बात है, और सबसे आसान तरीका है स्पोर्ट्स खेलना। Competitive. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have
और आप
Gulzar.
मुझे इनवाइट करिए, मैं आऊंगा वडोदरा आपके पास।
Karo invite.
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, so you have an open invitation now to come and meet us anytime you are free. And we have Gulzar Saab as well. He is one of our educators based out of Kashmir. And he's working, doing all our Oasis movement, taking it forward in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So Gulzar Saab, I will ask you to unmute yourself and please आप अपना सवाल पूछिए.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm here, Gulzar from Kashmir. Sir,
कहाँ पे कश्मीर में, कहाँ पे?
I'm from Kashmir, Shalting area, Srinagar.
Shalting, okay. I've spent most of my life in Kashmir, especially on from Kupwara to Handwara to Pahalgam to Gulmarg to Tregam.
Oh.
हाँ, तो Srinagar, so मतलब मेरी पूरी
It
जिंदगी
means
वहाँ
that,
की है।
that you have covered whole Kashmir, of course. I'm basically from Kupwara.
हाँ, so
from
I
the
met
Handwara side.
Mr. Omar Abdullah in Gurez, and I told him, I think I may know more Kashmir than you. And he said, no, that's not possible. फिर मैंने ऐसे गिनाना शुरू किया उनको. Then he said, maybe you are right.
No, you are really right. That is true.
Chowkibal, of course.
It is so nice of you that you have visited whole Kashmir. You have seen each and every part of the Kashmir. So you might have a great love for Kashmir.
I have great love for Kashmir and Kashmiris.
Oh,
And you know,
okay.
I think my greatest lesson, and which we didn't talk about, Tina, is that, you know, the human condition is all the same. everybody looks and wants the same thing, which is the betterment of your family and a happy, content life. So that lesson I learned from Kashmir. You go there thinking that you have to solve some militancy problem, but that is not the issue. The problem is everybody wants to the same. Wo Kerala ka ho ya Tamil Nadu ka ho ya Kashmir ka ho, issue is the same. I want betterment for my family. I want my children to be better than me, and I want to be safe. So, those are the lessons I learned from Kashmir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. A good and nice experience from Kashmir. Sir, I would like to know about the Right to Education Act. Right to Education Act was passed in 2009. During these 12 years, we could not bring back out of school children or dropouts to our schools. I would like to know if there is any inadequacy in the act, or is there any sluggishness on the part of the executive?
Is there any sluggishness?
Sluggishness on the part of is it any sluggishness in execution or on the part of the executive?
As to why
in the execution of the act, I mean to say.
Oh, in the execution of that. See, firstly, Gulzar Mir Saab, I am 62 years old. So, after 60, you can say what you feel like. Doesn't matter whether people like it or don't like it. So, you're a senior citizen, no? लोग अगर हमसे सुने या नहीं सुने हम बोल सकते हैं. तो problem India का और Education Act या कुछ भी हो is in execution. हम plans अच्छे बनाते हैं. Execute करने में, as I was saying, that's one of the greatest lessons I have learned is that we don't execute properly. And since the national education, while we can pass these in India's parliament, it also needs the states to execute. And the state structures and how well they are ready for it, what are the sort of budgets, what's the sort of, again, character building of the large number of teachers and educationists and education bureaucrats. I think these are the areas which need resolution. If we get these right, we will get the rest of it right. I don't think there's even shortage of budget, but unfortunately, public schooling in India is falling apart. And it is a great danger. It is a great danger for a country of our size that 50% of our children go to private schooling, and many of them go to what is called low-cost private schooling. It is a great danger to the country because education and health are things that state should look after. And the government should look after these. So I think it is not a good situation. And the problem is in execution, in the will to do it, and there are many other problems. So I can't paint a rosy picture. I don't see a rosy picture.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
But if you have a great education minister and if you have a great education secretary, a lot can change. That is how much leadership can make a difference also. If we have 2-3 good people in the right positions and they are committed, I mean, honestly, the Delhi government's foray in education for only 7-8 years, I've seen some of those schools gone and taught with the children. I couldn't make out the difference between Shiv Nadar school and Delhi, some of these government schools in Delhi. They've changed it in 4 to 5 years.
Yes, sir.
It is amazing. You should visit some of these schools as Oasis and what you do, and take that to state boards and see what can happen, because it is possible.
Of course. It means that it needs the will, it needs the determination to execute
of the leadership.
Act in letter and spirit. So that is, I think, the lacking in the system, of course.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gulzar sir. So now we have another youngster, Nirali, who has raised her hand. So Nirali, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, sir. This is
Hello.
Nirali from Surat. It was nice listening to you. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I have 2 questions. First would be how can we craft a more human form of capitalism? So I see that the current schools are focusing more on money or the position, but ideally the unit of economy is each person and not the dollar. And the another one is you have rightly mentioned that you are planning to do 30% assessment reserved for character education, but what needs to be done apart from that to strengthen the connection between formal education and practical world? So my school didn't teach me how to file taxes or how to file written or even household management or time management. So being an important stakeholder, what are the steps that you would like to take?
So obviously, two very, very different questions. So let me try and answer the second, and then we'll go to the first, right? I think, are you in a school?
I'm working.
You're working. So I think it's for individual school leaders. It starts with the school leader, right? You don't have to depend on somebody else saying how you can change how you run a school. So there are many things I think within a school where we can do a lot of things which are practical, which are real world, which are project based, and these are all part of what schools can do. There will always be questions of there is not enough time, we have to finish the syllabus and the curriculum. But I think if you have something good to do, we can always find time. The curriculum doesn't, by the way, need the amount of time it has. So to teach 7-8 chapters doesn't take a whole year. So there is a lot of time which can be spent on these type of areas, and it's quite easy to do that, provided that the school leadership believes that these are important skills. I told you I studied in Singapore, and in Singapore, I think in grade 5 or 6, so much of time is spent on skill-based education. You have to do, at that time, long time ago, but you had to do carpentry. It was part of your syllabus. You had to learn how to do lathe work. It was part of the syllabus, right? I went to the National Defense Academy. It's there also. You get one whole day in 10 days where you're spending in working with your hands, right? So all the sort of skills that people need, whether it is in filing taxes to, about health related, for example. I think those are all things which should be part of the school program. Yeah. Right. What's the first question again? Sorry.
How can we give more value to human rather than money?
Yeah. Capital. You said so. Human form of capitalism. So this is a very deep question. Maybe we need a couple of days to try and have a dialogue and see where we get there. But I think, again, India is in a very interesting space. If you really look at what's happening in India in the economy and how people are involved. Now, the Shiv Nadar Foundation, as I told you, Mr. Nadar spent 7,000 crores of his personal money in education. If the schools were brilliantly run by the state, maybe there was no need. He feels the need and he's put it there. So there are a lot of corporate houses. There is that 2% of the profits which is to go into CSR. Some of them are using it extremely well. So there's a lot of human side of capitalism which is there, right? But I think the greatest function of capitalism is to make profits, and through profits to generate jobs. And that itself is a positive side of good capitalism, right? You're generating jobs, you're generating wealth. It's not really the job of capital, of corporates to run society. That's the job of the government, right? I think the corporates are stepping in various ways, and it's great to see that is happening. And there will always be good corporates and bad corporates. So there's a growing number of good corporates are happening. So
yeah, that's a good sign, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good sign. It's a lovely question.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much for a lovely question, Nirali. So, Angelina, yes, thank you so much. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, my name is Angelina and I'm from Kerala. So I would like to know that as you being a part of in the education system that we have right now, what is the one thing that you want to change in the education system that currently runs?
So I think I spoke about it, but as I said, if we change at the school level the assessment system, assessments show what you value, right? What you value as an individual, you said parents, what you value as a school, what you value as a society, what you value as humanity, right? When you're young minds and you're told this is what you're going to be assessed for, that's going to change the way, it's going to determine the way you run a school system or an education system. Change the assessment, for example, to say academic mark 60%, 10% social skills, 10% emotional skills, 20% health, 10% financial literacy and understanding. You see, you've changed the way the education system is going to run. So I think the one thing that we should all, whoever is taking these decisions, at our level, we do that. But assessments tell society what you value. If you say skills, for example, which I gave those examples, if you say that's important, then you're going to spend time doing that. So if there's one thing I would change is the assessment system. It's outdated. It's out of touch with reality.
True, sir. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Angelina. So, Kirtana, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. So my question is that there is a lack of efficiency and honesty in political system and bureaucracy. So what are the ways through which patriotism and intention to serve for the country can be inculcated in politicians and bureaucrats?
From Mahatma Gandhi to all these 75, 80 years, nobody has got the answer. So I will not even try to give you an answer. I'm not so wise and so powerful to make a public opinion. Maybe I have a private opinion. But just like there is a problem in our assessment system, I think there's a problem in our political system of how we find leaders and I don't mean elect leaders, how we allow who are the type of people who should become leaders of our country, and we don't have a say in that, and the current political system allows that. So we have a problem there. There's no shortage of good people who can efficiently run this country, but the system has now become such that the best are not getting there. And actually speaking, I know, again, I'm saying something controversial, but I don't even think that the IS system of selection is the right, even that is outdated. The huge examination that you do and the memory test that you have to go through to pass an IS exam, but whether the best administrators and leaders are really getting into the IS who can make a difference, I'm not sure. I think that's the fundamental problem. Are we getting the right people there?
Yeah. Thank you, Kirtana, for a very nice question. Kirtana is also part of Oasis. So all the people who've been asking questions have all been part of the Oasis movement. And we have Jay Lakshmi. Okay, Jay Lakshmi, she's also part of Oasis. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, sir. Good evening. So it was a great pleasure and privilege to listen to you, and it was more than inspiring and motivating, and what I don't know how can I explain it. So I'm Jayalakshmi from Kerala. So one thing was running inside me for this a few days, like what was happening in Afghanistan and all those things about these war, and those things were really disturbing that I can't even go through the news about what was happening there. So according to my understanding, it's like everything happening is actually for something power or some sort of domination or something like that. So according to you, what do you think, like what is all for is this something for domination or power, or what this thing has to actually do? Because there are lots of people who are suffering. It's actually disturbing. I think, yeah, it is disturbing, and many are suffering and all. So what do you think about this domination or power, or is there anything more than that, like this war and something? So what do you think about this war that
You are
yeah.
a very good Keralite. You're always worried about what's happening in the whole world. So I'm also from Kerala, by the way. So it's very difficult to have this geopolitical conversation in a short while. But having said that, Afghanistan is again, oh, by the way, can I refer another wonderful book you must read, and all your Oasis fellows, Tina and team? It's called Prisoners of Geography. Prisoners of Geography is the book. Tim Marshall. Right? It's a book you must get, because unless you understand that geography and history are deeply connected, you won't understand what's happening in the world. It's got every part of the world. It will tell you why this is happening in this place, why is this happening there. So Afghanistan issue goes back to what is called the Cold War, which happened 40 years ago with the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, right? And the American attempt to get the Soviets out, and therefore a lot of weapons ended up there in this fight between two superpowers, and Afghanistan got caught in that turmoil. So there are lots, and then there are lots of tribals of different ethnicities, right? And all parts of Afghanistan, so all have different sort of loyalties. So everybody's got weapons. So I'm making it very simple. And therefore, one group is fighting another group. So that's broadly what is the story of Afghanistan. And they got caught up because they became a prisoner of geography. So you read that Prisoner of Geography, Jayalakshmi, I'm sure you like that book, since you asked such a wonderful geopolitical question.
Thank you so much,
Yes,
Jayalakshmi.
thank you, sir.
So I think,
And if you write me your address, I will mail you a gift copy of Prisoners of Geography. So Tina ma'am has my address, and I will send you a copy. You mail me your address. You asked such a nice. I would actually like to maybe send a few books to some of your fellows, and Jayalakshmi is one of them. I'll send a
so I'll organize that. So I'll get it.
Thank you, sir.
I'll get it from you, and then I'll pass it on to the students. So that's my responsibility. Thank you, Colonel Gopal, for that offer. So now we have one last question. After that, we have to wind up, but it has to be a very quick one. So Sundar, I'll ask you to unmute yourself and keep it very brief, because we have a conclusion and we need to end. So Colonel Gopal, one last question from Sundar.
Hello, Colonel. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, sir.
Okay. One request. We were talking about making change in school education, and what I personally experienced, for example, with my son who went into university, he had a foundation course called Critical Thinking and Logical Reasoning, and Creative Writing to add. Okay. I mean, I think these are basics which should be taught in school, which is missed out completely because the kids are in the race to basically pass exams and get high scores and stuff. I think this is something which school education can, definitely look into seriously. And the other thing is, when we say, the parents want the kids to be better than them and, do well. What parents are also pushing the kids into is basically forgetting the skills inherently that, for example, a family which is into carpentry, the father doesn't want his son to be a carpenter, but basically he wants to forget for his son to even forget carpentry as a skill, which is very bad, which is basically hand skills, vocational skills, which are very, very, very crucial in schooling. So these are my two thoughts, and I'd like your.
I think your both the points are. Whoever is going to take these type of decisions, both are so relevant. In fact, in the International Baccalaureate system of education, the IB system, there's something called theory of knowledge. It's exactly what you are mentioning. And I think all progressive schools do these things. One of the things I think Shivnara School we are thinking of now introducing is called ethical debates. That's like critical thinking. You're doing the pros and cons of a particular situation. But some schooling systems, like I said, the International Baccalaureate program has regular programs on critical thinking, which is something which is worth replicating. I think it's a very important part. And the other thing is, you're totally right that, because of everybody's understanding of formal education is about this old British idea of education for India, and we've just continued doing that at the cost of skilling and polytechnic. And polytechnic will change a lot every 10 years, what you have to do in skilling. Germany is a great example of incredible, not only Germany, the Scandinavian countries have the system that by 10th class you choose whether you go to a polytechnic where you're learning skills and work on those areas, or you go to a regular theoretical class, which is what we sort of do. And it's a huge weakness in the education system. And people have been talking about it. That's the other thing. People talk, but they don't implement. So actually in 10th class itself, it should change and say that learn to be not just a carpenter. It could be in the hospitality industry. It has tourism industry. These are all skills, right? So you learn skill because you don't want to do this BA and things like that. It's neither your interest nor your aptitude. And when you look at the vast, I went to one corner of Arunachal Pradesh, and the only way to get there is by aircraft. There were no road at that time, but aircraft used to reach. And I saw all these children wearing ties and go to school and studying the same things that you would do in a Delhi school. And I wondered, what are they going to study? What are they studying for? Because the incongruence of what you just said is highlighted when you go to such places and say they're studying the same thing. If he was a really great carpenter or a great painter or, how to make a roof, he'll probably become really skilled and get enough money or more money than be a overeducated, unemployable guy. So you're absolutely right. It's governments keep talking about it, we don't do enough of it. But at least we are aware of it. We can't do much, but we are at least talking about it. But yes, that's what we need to do. True.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you so much. Actually, Colonel Gopal, we've run out of time, but there's one girl who has been raising her hand and waiting very patiently.
Riya.
So if you're okay with it, can I allow her to ask the question?
Yes.
Okay, please. Thank you so much. So, Riya,
yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm really sorry I'm asking at the last minute, but it was based on, what you said recently. So you spoke about the IB curriculum. So even I'm an IB diploma graduate, and my question then is that what I have observed, so I'm working in Oasis right now, but my school was a very wonderful school with IB education, which was one of the best. We did CAS, TOK, everything. But what I have been seeing in my peers and everyone who went through this kind of education is that eventually they all also want to end up into getting jobs that make more money. So then when you said that, when you put CAS or something, creativity or something in the report card, in a way parents see it as something, but then they also start seeing as a tick mark that you have to do that. Okay, let's also just do service for the sake of it. So don't you think that this kind of in this kind of an intellectually stimulating education, somewhere we miss the heart where, we stop caring about other people and the society and we care more about getting our own life in order. So how do we strike this balance? Because my friends are brilliant, they go to Ivy Leagues, but if they have to do a random act of kindness for someone on the street, that's very difficult for them to do. So then is that a balanced education?
Riya, at the cost of annoying Oasis, I'm thinking of asking you to come and join the Shiv Nadar Foundation. So, I think the only answer to that, Riya, is to each his own, right? To each his own. So people get educated, they make choices. In fact, one of my favorite conversations these days is about choices and habits. And how do you make the right choices? And how do you follow those choices through habits? Because there's no point just having a choice, but how do you follow it up with habits? So I think the question is that you had a particular education, you had a particular inclination, you probably had a particular advice, and you chose what you want to do, right? And if that gives you happiness and that gives you joy, then you should follow that and follow your heart to do that. If somebody else wants to be an investment banker with that education, so be it. let them follow, their choice. And at some point of time, either both of you could be happy or one could not be. So when you're at the other end of your life, like I am, so when you reflect back, you will look back at the 16, 17-year-olds at that point and say, how do people go? But it all centers around the choices and the habits you finally.
Yes, so absolutely agree with that. But just a small follow-up, that definitely I got some kind of an orientation, and which is why I chose this. And my only question is that, do you feel that in our schools we get enough kind of orientation for all these kinds of things? Because my orientation was not from school, it was from elsewhere. And now when I talk to my friends, yes, they're enjoying, but as a human, we feel the need to deeply connect with humanity. So that kind of orientation, do you feel that it lacks in our intellectual education system?
I think there is a wonderful, brilliant movement across India now called IC3. It's about counseling children. It's again hugely missing in the government school system. They just don't have counselors. But the great need is to connect children's aptitudes and interests and their passions to what they should follow up in their life. And genetically, we're different, environmentally, we're conditioned differently, but many people don't even know what they should do. So I think truly trying to understand 9th class, 10th class child and try to, say that this is suiting your aptitude and your strengths. It's not just aptitude and interest. You may have aptitude and interest, but if you don't have the strength in that area, then you're not going to really enjoy work. In today's world, to deeply enjoy what you do is so important because the internet has made all decision making super fast. People have forgotten that you can't afford to work in a space if you're not enjoying it deeply. So a wonderful question, Ria. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And on this, we have to end the session. So thank you to everybody for joining us, and thank you, Colonel Gopal, for such a wonderful and insightful dialogue session that we had with you, and we learned so much from you today. And if there is any one last thing you want to leave us all with, please feel free.
One is that I would try to send at least a book to each one who asked me a question. Maybe I'll figure that.
Thank you so much.
And that's something I love to do. And secondly, I think from Oasis, we need to learn how you're really working on character building and what are structures that you put together. That's something. Shashi ma'am is here, who's a principal of the Shiv Nadar school. She's director of education. So I'm sure Shashi ma'am will connect with Tina and to us. And we'll, as we go into our next year, we'll learn from you. And
thank you so much. She's already put in the chat as well. So thank you, Shashi ma'am, for your.
And maybe at some point of time, Corona permitting, I will come and visit the lovely Oasis fellows I see on the screen there. Wonderful kids.
Thank you so much. And we look forward to continuing to be associated with you and learning from you, and also be giving you as much as possible. So on that note, thank you so much to everybody. We are also, as you know, continuing Power of One series चलते रहेंगे, और हमारा एक 2 अक्टूबर का मैं आपको खास इनविटेशन देना चाहती हूँ, क्योंकि एक बहुत स्पेशल चेंज मेकर हमारे साथ जुड़ने वाली हैं गुजरात कच्छ रीजन से, वुमेन चेंज मेकर, जो कि हमने खास 2 अक्टूबर को गांधी जयंती के सेशन रखा है। तो उसका आपको डेफिनेटली क्लोजर टू द डेट इनविटेशन पहुंचेगा ही, लेकिन मैं आज आपको पर्सनली सबको इनवाइट भी कर रही हूँ। सो इसी के साथ सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। थैंक यू कर्नल गोपाल, थैंक यू सो मच, एंड thank you to everybody, and happy Teachers Day. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Bye bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.